Welcome back to episode 2 of the Casually Hardcore podcast. Thanks again for joining us. I'm Nick.
I'm Billy.
I'm Alan.
And I'm Eric.
And today we're going to talk about competitive gaming. This episode's going to be themed around that topic. But first, we're going to talk about some gaming news. First, what happened this week. I know a couple games launched that people are excited about. Yooka-Laylee launched. Persona 5 launched, which Persona 5 has been delayed a couple times. I know from my personal standpoint, I'm a huge Banjo-Kazooie fan. And Yooka-Laylee is kind of a throwback to that as well. What's your take on this week? Anything exciting for you guys?
Well, Yooka-Laylee was, I think it's a pretty good game that they balanced, changed, so it'd be different from the original. But it's also got some flaws from the original, which is like the camera system isn't as good as it should be for like games nowadays.
Yeah, I know in some of the reviews that I've watched, the camera was the bane of the game. Just watching it. It was hard to follow, especially for a platformer. When you got to do precise jumps and timing is everything. With a bad camera not following you with your every move, or that's really sets you back. And I think that kind of archaic gameplay is what kind of set it back a little bit with the reviews. And I know people talked about how it just felt old, but I feel like that's also kind of the charm too. That's what it was going for, was that old school 2000s platformer. But Billy, Eric, is there any games or anything that came out this week you guys are excited about, or upcoming at least?
In terms of new games, I haven't really been watching much. I've been going a lot more to the throwback games. Like I just bought, of course, with me, Kingdom Hearts, the collector's edition for the PlayStation 4 of 1.5 and 2.5. And I also recently got Civ 5 and all those things because it went on sale for Steam. But I haven't really seen much, except for Persona 5. I haven't really seen much from like recent releases that I really just want to, I absolutely have to have that. There's a lot of games where I'm taking a little bit of a step back and just watching.
I got you.
See what happens.
I think for me, Persona 5 is it's on my radar now just because I know it's developed by Atlas.
Yeah.
And after the podcast last week, I just mentioned to you guys a game called Steambot Chronicles, and I have no clue what the other 4 personas are about, but watching some gameplay, I think this past week, probably like Wednesday or something like that, kind of sparked my interest.
Yeah.
I think I was watching something where he was like walking around a train station or something like that, and I don't know, just something about that type of gameplay just appeals to me.
Yeah.
Their older game, Steambot Chronicles, was like way back on the PS2. And it was like one of those games that has like a cult following. I feel like not a lot of people played it or really liked it. There's not even like a Wikipedia page on the game, really.
Oh, really? Okay.
So that's kind of how small of a venture that game kind of was.
Yeah, I know with the Persona series, it's kind of like Final Fantasy. I think there's a couple that are linked. I had never had a PlayStation up until this point. I've only kind of played a little bit over friends' houses, so I never really got to experience like the Persona series or any of the RPGs that kind of came along with the platform. So that's something I'm really looking into. Just to kind of diversify myself with games. The more and more I get into the gaming culture, the more and more I want to play, JRPGs, RPGs that, are not the dude bro shooters that I like to play so much.
Nothing wrong with that, though.
No, not at all. So a cool tidbit that I actually looked at, too, is Minecraft is going to China as a free-to-play.
Really?
What?
Yeah, it was just announced. It was kind of overshadowed by Project Scorpio specs being shown off, but yeah, China is now getting Minecraft as a free-to-play. What do you think about that?
That's pretty interesting, to be honest. I mean, Microsoft owns Minecraft now, right?
Yes, the $2 billion deal, and Notch is now a rich man living in L.A. Yeah.
But
Yeah, when you're Microsoft, $2 billion.
not really that much.
That's pocket change.
So,
yeah.
how would they make money just having it free to play in China?
I don't know.
There's a bunch of packs you can get, like downloadable.
So
packs.
there's microtransactions in Minecraft.
I remember
and they've added
skins and stuff like that.
Well, they recently added 2 things to it, and that's the arena, which there's combat mode, so you just run around this pre-built map, and there's chests everywhere, and you find items. Sometimes they're weapons, sometimes it's armor, sometimes it's potions, sometimes it's nothing more than a wooden hoe with no enchantment, and you literally just fight to the death. Then there's other ones which are challenges, and something that came out very recently was, or got announced recently was, they added this new thing when after you beat the Ender Dragon, you can go to, I don't know what it's called, but there's this second area.
I think it's just further into the end.
Yeah, I think it's just something else into the end. But you can throw an ender pearl through this tiny, like this 1x1 block, and it brings you to this other place where there's glide wings. So now, if you're not in creative, you can still fly. And
that's awesome.
Yep, and they add it, but it's gliding. It's not flying. So you do that.
Oh, okay. You kind of slowly go down.
Yeah, again with the hand motions that no one can see.
Yeah.
But they added race courses for those.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I just watched Achievement Hunter play on the other day.
Achievement Hunter.
Shout out.
Achievement Hunter is an
Notice
absolute
us.
I love Achievement Hunter. You guys ever watch? I think it's I forgot what the thing is called, but like Rage or
Rage Quit.
Rage Quit.
Rage
yeah.
Quit.
Yes.
Do they still
Is
do
it
that?
Achievement Hunter?
Yeah,
yes.
Achievement Hunter,
Then
yeah.
I've seen it.
Rooster Teeth makes so much great content, and the guys on there, all their personalities are fantastic.
We should just dedicate an entire episode to how much we love Rooster Teeth.
I love Red
Oh my
vs.
God.
Blue, and Red vs. Blue is coming out at the end of this month for season 15. So,
Yeah, the
Woo!
thing that's crazy about... Real quick tangent, then we'll get back to the
Yeah.
actual topic.
Yeah.
The thing that's crazy about Rooster Teeth is that they've actually taken over most sense of modern media. They started off as just this web series, Red vs. Blue, was one of their first big things.
Yeah.
And then they started branching out, and now they have Let's Plays, they have Ruby, they have Rooster Teeth. Yeah, Rooster Teeth, of course. Red vs. Blue, they have Funhouse, which is another Let's Play channel. They have Immersion, where they test
my
actual like video games in real
the
life.
Warthog episode.
Yeah.
Back to Halo again. They had a fucking Warthog. Excuse my language, but
Yeah.
that was the coolest, and then they blew it up.
What?
Yeah,
When
why
they,
not?
Well, they blew it up because it was too big. It was like they had the tax on it. End of the year was too much for them, so they just
Okay.
decided to blow it up.
Yeah.
But-
My favorite like so far has been the Hitman one. I don't know if you guys seen that.
Yeah.
But they dressed like
They're just two guys up,
guys
Michael
up.
and Gavin.
Michael and Gavin, the two stars of the show. I think.
Yeah.
Those two are
They're the
awesome.
lab rats. But then they also have movies. Like they have Laser Team, a legitimate movie which aired in theaters, and
Oh, it did. I did not know about that.
some select theaters, mainly down in Texas.
Bummer wasn't there for that.
Yeah, so they have all these different, and they have a video game coming out now with a Ruby video game. It's called.
Oh, it's already out.
It's already out.
Yeah.
Shadow of Grim or
Yeah.
Grim Eclipse or something like that. And they have other web series like 10 Little Roosters and 11 Little Roosters. I mean, they have all of this stuff now, and they're actually the only thing that they're missing is a book, which I don't even know. Maybe one of them has, and like a TV show airing on like a network channel.
Okay.
But they already have so many series online that you don't even need that. So I think Rooster Teeth is just crazy with how much they've taken over media. They have a hand in literally everything.
Yeah, and every new trend or everything that they kind of dip into is quality. So
Yeah.
I know with Ruby, that was like their second take at I don't know if you call it a TV series or web series, but it was definitely a lot more higher quality. It was more animation. It wasn't, recording on an Xbox 360. And for that venture, they did really, really well.
Yeah.
And they created another cult series that has a huge following, just like anything else. And they're very revolutionary. I totally agree with that. And they're kind of inspiring to think about it too. When they kind of venture into a new platform, they go in, balls to the wall. They have a great team. It's already got great flow. So it makes you think they do a lot more testing behind the scenes before they launch their product or whatever series they're going to do. So it's really cool to think about. I know for a gaming crap thing, Kickstarter came out with a Pokemon VR MMO.
What?
Yeah, so somebody's trying to launch a Pokemon VR MMO.
They've gotta do something. I feel like Pokemon is like one of the series that's just far behind
It is.
in terms of like everything else everybody's been doing.
I mean, they came out with Pokken, right? And that was like a step in the right direction, I think.
And then but the Wii U version never got any more content from the arcade version. They never released any new characters. It wasn't
Yeah.
supported at all, and then it kind of just came out and then gone. Poof.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't really follow. MMO especially. I'm talking about that would be awesome for Pokemon.
Oh yeah.
Dude, I'd sink hours and hours and hours into that, probably more than
Oh, yeah, me too.
it would take over my life. It would consume it. But yeah, they're archaic. The games are always the same mechanics, the same plot, which is fine. But all these other IPs that are huge are doing spin-offs or collaborations, or it just feels it's the same old thing. Anime TV show, launch 2 Pokemon games,
Yeah.
a remake two Pokemon games. Like, you guys ever play the GameCube ones, the Conquest and XD?
Yes.
Those were-
Coliseum, I think it was.
Yeah,
right?
Coliseum. Yeah, that was fun. It was a nice little take. It changed it up a little bit. The gist was you could capture Pokemon through like the shadow capturing or whatever.
Still catching them from other trainers, right?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, basically you did what the original Pokemon game said you should never ever do.
Which was
Steal
dope.
other people's Pokemon.
Yeah, and that only villains ever did. The first person we ever saw to actually steal Pokemon was Team Rocket, and then Mewtwo did it in the
Yeah,
first
Mewtwo.
movie. And then this video game basically says, you know all that stuff we said before? Yeah, go ahead and do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Real quick plug, going back to the Ruby thing. Gotta do this. Sorry, came to my head. You want to see some great Ruby cosplay? Search up Daikon cosplay. My sister's in that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
For the Ruby? What character?
My sister is Blake.
Blake. Okay.
But yeah, Daikon cosplay. They have a Facebook page. Go check them out. Sorry.
Slowly throwing in the advertisements already on episode 2. We're already
Wow.
selling out. Look at
It's my sister.
I'm
What do
just-
you expect?
I'm kidding. So the theme for this episode is competitive gaming. I know each of our different backgrounds, we all play in different genres of competitive, and we all have our own different takes. And I know there's a lot of controversies that come with it, and there's a lot of history. Just to kind of start off with going to that topic, just going around from Eric to me, what competitive game do you consider to be your origin? Like, where did you start with competitive gaming? Why did you do it? Why did you love it? Just kind of talk a little bit about it.
My first game that I'd say I did truly competitively and that I sought out more competitive matches was Smite.
Okay.
I tried League of Legends for a little bit, but I didn't like that like omniscient screen style. But then Smite brought in the more third-person limited style, and I really liked that because it reminded me a lot more of the RPGs that I was used to. And I felt that Smite was also a little more fast-paced. It got into things faster, and I love, the concept of gods beating the shit out of each other. Pardon my language, sorry. Beating the crap out of each other. And it was so much fun with all these diverse characters that had unique abilities. And when I started playing it, there wasn't a whole lot of that diversity, but then they quickly started patching things and adding new things in. There was a bunch of new characters, and everyone was so unique. And so I could play for hours and hours and hours and not get tired of it because of all the different characters. And I think that's something with me that I think really makes a competitive game is there has to be diversity. If the competitive game isn't diverse, then I don't think I would like it very much. Because right now the thing I'm getting into is Overwatch. And they also have a lot of characters. And Smite has a lot of characters. And so that's really what hooked me in was that the ability, even though it's so competitive, you're not defined to a box every single match.
I gotcha.
Yeah. Well, my first competitive game, I guess, that really drove me into like the competitive scene was like YouTube videos of Melee, and I was just impressed. Like, how do they do this shit? Right? I'm sorry again for the language, but like, how do they do this? Like, the game doesn't usually play this way when I do it, right? So like, what are they doing differently? And so like that kind of led me down the road of like actually buying like a $70 GameCube disc, right? And like trying the stuff out, and I enjoyed it. And then I guess that kind of opened me up to like other competitive games like Overwatch, Street Fighter, which I'm really bad at, but like it's really interesting. I really enjoy it.
So it led you down to that fighting kind of fighter route. I gotcha. Billy, what about you, man?
When I think back, like way back to when PS3 like first came out, and they were just trying to get a bunch of like good titles on it, a bunch of console exclusives. You guys ever heard of Warhawk?
Yeah.
Yes,
I heard
Warhawk's a
Warhawk.
blast.
Warhawk.
Or was a blast.
It was a blast,
It was
yeah.
a blast.
For those that don't know, Warhawk is like a total war type of game where you can get into like jets, jumping jeeps, tanks, running the ground with like rockets and machine guns, stuff like that. And for a while, I was doing that competitively with like a clan on game battles when that was a thing.
Game battles,
And
yes. Okay.
I left after a while, and then when I look back, the clan that I used to be in was actually the #1 ranked on game battles for Warhawk. They were called Kamikaze, so it was,
Kamikaze.
I don't know. It was kind of fun being able to like have a community
Yeah.
and being competitive with them. Otherwise, after that, Call of Duty 4 came out, and I played with like a random client I found on YouTube for like years, and then did game battles with them and won some, lost some, but yeah.
Game Battles was the original, I think, at least for maybe our generation, because I did a little bit of that. I kind of dabbled in Game Battles for Halo 3 and a little bit of COD, so that was kind of a throwback listening to Game Battles.
Yeah.
I don't know if are they still around at all, or
I mean, I'm sure the website's still up, but
right.
Well, for me, that's only started playing competitively now in my 3rd year of college.
right.
What is Game Battles?
So so I guess before the internet kind of it was slowly taking off and people were able to have those multiple channels. Nowadays, it was a way to organize tournaments.
yeah.
So like for COD 4, for instance, you would have these online tournaments. Some were paid, some were just for fun. And you had these teams, and you would log in your teams, and you send the players up, and it would basically they would have a referee, and you have your 2 teams, and you would play each other at a specific time that you set up. And then, if you won, you log it in. If you lost, you log it in, or you continue the tournament or lost. It was basically like an online tournament
Yeah.
way to play online professionally or competitively.
Seems like it would be. Was it run by the players?
It's actually run by MLG, Major League Gaming. So it's a connected.
Oh wow, look at that! It's
you
come
know,
a long
brand.
way. I haven't seen this website in a long time.
Long time.
253 wins. Look at that, man.
But yeah, fighting on game battles, like actually, the going through the process of setting up a game and meeting with like people in game in a custom match and fighting them and then winning the match and then having them like sometimes people would actually like lie and dispute that they won the match.
That's why you had to record it or take like screens. You'd have to do that. I mean, there's always really crappy people in the world,
Yeah.
but I guess for the time, at least for me, the reason why I love doing it so much was that the coolness factor of going out and beating people, that competitive nature of going out and beating players that think they're the greatest and then you think you're the greatest, but you actually win. So it's kind of like slowly, I guess, like when we play sports, Eric, when we play football, the more wins we get, the more confidence you get, the more I guess feeling you get. That's kind of what kind of drove me in game battles. I guess from my competitive standpoint, I'm going back to RuneScape. We're going way back in the day. PKing, player killing, sir.
Oh, it's funny. I never thought of that game as competitive. I never did the PK for that.
I hated skilling. It was cutting down trees was an absolute chore for me. So I just like player killing and doing all the builds. I was watching, I created an account, do a certain level build, play it, and fight until I basically lost all my money or never won it. So that was kind of the start. And then Halo 3 and Modern Warfare 2 are kind of the 2 big games that kind of drove me competitively from here on out. I just know competitive gaming is awesome. It's a way for you to not necessarily, I know with sports and all that, it takes a little bit more physical effort, but from it's more of a technical standpoint, it's more accessible for games to get in there and play with them versus both sport.
Well, I think I have probably the most bipolar view on competitive gaming.
Mm-hmm.
On the positive side for me, which is where I believe we're going to, I think it's super cool because it adds that that competitive nature and that I'd call it tactical mindset that you need for even sports that need and that desire to just win, as well as being able to put your skills against someone else. All those things are there, and it's certainly a lot safer than say football, which for me I have actually broken my spine playing.
Ooh.
So it's certainly a lot better than that, or running the risk of getting your 4th and 5th concussion.
Yeah, the physical injuries are basically absent unless you get like a thumb cramp or
Carpal tunnel,
which it's not to joke about, but
Yeah, but then you can't play, and that just destroys your career.
yeah,
At that point.
And the injuries are still, and injuries that are there, I'm not saying that it won't be bad for your career.
No,
I'm
it's just
saying
not
for your,
as bad for you. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I think this is just an overarching thing with sports. An injury gained from doing something will affect what you were doing while you got it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
So, if you got an injury from playing a video game, odds are, if that is your career, it's going to affect your career. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, in terms of your true overall physical health, a broken spine versus a sprained wrist.
The two are not comparable on any route.
Yeah.
So, I
Except
guess,
for professional and all that stuff, what you're doing with your career.
yeah, anything professionally, any injury you're going to get, it's going to unfortunately end your career or damage it. I guess talking more about competitive gaming in its whole, there's always that kind of battle between people. Is it a legit sport? Is it not? There's this, as something becomes more popular, there's always going to be a negative connotation to it, or people trying to fight against it. What do you guys think about that when it comes to esports, or going back to MLG? Do you think calling it esports is appropriate? Do you believe that they are truly athletes for the amount of time and effort they put in? I know it's a very, very controversial topic, so I mean, you guys have the floor. There's nothing bad to say here about it. So I mean, is there anything you think about that?
Yeah, if you call it a legitimate sport and that they are true purebred athletes, I'm only going to tackle you to the ground. It's no risk. No, seriously,
Do it.
Go ahead.
Well, I think esports are in like a weird place, right? Because I mean, is chess and poker considered a sport?
Chess is considered a sport just because of its Olympic background. It was in the Olympics, and it was during the Cold War. Was the only time where Russia and the U.S. would play each other. It was actually during chess, so it has more of a historic standpoint. But I'm controversial. I don't consider poker and chess sports, but
Yeah.
I guess does the world consider it sports? I
Like
don't know.
they're in the Olympics, right? So
Chess is. Poker,
Poker is not.
I don't know if you can do Olympic poker. That'd be kind of cool. But
Then who's that guy on Instagram who always posts pictures of himself like with goats and a
I
mansion
have
full of
no idea what you're
beautiful
talking
women.
about.
I have no idea.
You lost me at goats.
You lost me at goats.
Yeah, he has 2 goats. I gotta look this guy
Yeah,
up.
I have
Give me
no
a
idea.
second.
But kind of when you're going back to that, what do you mean like in a weird place?
Well, I mean, it's in that area where I don't consider sports like chess and poker a sport, right? But I consider like football, like soccer, sports. It's in between like those 2 areas, I feel, because you do need like physical exertion to play video games and finesse to do it. Unlike like poker or chess, like you do need like mental background, right? You need mind games, be able to predict opponents. But you don't need like actual physical effort to put in,
Right, I agree.
or reflexes compared to like video games or sports. But on the same side, like video games take less effort than sports do, so I feel like they're in like a separate area. They're esports. They're not actual esports.
I got you. What about you, Billy?
In a way, I agree. In a way, I disagree. I think video games take a lot of effort just because one of the things I've always talked to one of my buddies about is like, damn, I wish I could like just play video games for like professionally,
Yeah.
Because these guys, they make like, it's like in the 6 digits. I feel like they're
Yeah, they make
making
good
a
money
lot
now.
of money.
Yeah.
Let's say bank is what
They're making bank, yeah.
Yeah.
And, I mean, in order to even get this good, they have to put in so much time to like practice, and
Right.
So you're saying that they get good?
they get better than good. Yeah,
They get the
Good,
best.
bro.
they get the best. So like people like Walshy, or I'm outdated on my pros, but like just the pros, they practice a lot, so it takes a lot of effort in that regard for me, I think.
Yeah, and I'm in the same boat with that. We were talking about this earlier before we started the podcast. I was really against the name of esports when it was first changed to that. I was a big fan of game battles, MLG, like professional gaming, and keeping it that route. And I thought when they changed it to esports, that was a way of them to, for people that couldn't access sports, was a way to kind of, I'm an athlete now because I can play video games. I thought that was a bunch of crap. Just because of the hours that I put in for football as an athlete, and just the amount of physical and mental exertion I constantly put out. When I would go home and play video games, I considered it relaxing as a hobby. I couldn't see anything that was relaxing and it was easy to do. Like if I had a bowl of Doritos, I couldn't do that while playing football. But if I wanted to, I'd grab a bowl of Doritos and play video games. So I didn't really consider the 2 sports. But the more and more I actually got into watching Twitch streams or tournaments of Smash Bros. Or Smash Wii U or Evo. I know it's a huge one. I love watching that.
Oh, right.
Or watching Gears tournaments, Halo tournaments. I mean, it takes a lot of skill. They're on a big stage. There's a ton of pressure, and there's different ways than physical to exert yourself. And it's a struggle for me too, because I really love games. I love seeing this competitive scene grow to where it's at now, especially with sport or games like League of Legends. And Heroes of the Storm being on ESPN, these big tournaments. And you look at South Korea, for instance, too.
Yeah, South Korea is huge for esports.
StarCraft.
StarCraft.
Yeah.
StarCraft 2.
StarCraft,
Yeah,
MOBAs. South Korea basically plays plays it all, right?
Yeah, and they I know
There's that old saying: you have a South Korean on your team, you win.
Yeah.
pretty much. Well, I know reading at least they consider their StarCraft a professional sport actually there.
Yeah.
And their superstars there are just as popular as people like Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
I mean, they're huge. And to see that aspect, and then in America, I know it's just it's different cultures, so you have that cultural difference. But I totally believe that esports can become legitimate if it's not legitimate already.
I think, I mean, it's super close, right? St.
Yeah.
Thomas, our school here is, we're building an esports team, right?
Yeah, we are. Another little product placement there, or team placement, where if anybody's interested, any of our listeners, they're starting a League of Legends team or esports team on campus. And
What?
Yeah, they are.
Sorry, that was probably a little loud.
No, our professor is actually the head of it,
I think so.
professor advisor to go along with it, and they're put together a competitive team, and St. Thomas is sponsoring it. So now we legitimately have an esports team, and depending on how this route goes, they want to do Smash Bros. Or a fighting team, they want to do a competitive shooter team, and they want to go out and play teams at the U of M, North Dakota State, SD. I mean, it's going to be a big production.
I mean, that's usually really popular in like southern states or states
Yeah.
like on the coast that they're already into that. We're just a little bit behind, I think,
Right.
on that.
Welcome to the Midwest.
Yeah, and Chicago, I think, has like actual scholarships for like video game players. I think they got a scholarship for a League of Legends team
Yeah.
that went there.
I saw the University of Utah actually in the news has become one of the first Division I schools to offer a full scholarship for video games, and then professionally, and it's for games like Counter-Strike, League of Legends. And I guess one thing that I don't really know too much about these games that come and go. I know, like, if you're good at Modern Warfare 2, right? Well, that game was only got a limited lifespan.
That's
Then
why
the
you've
next
got
Call of Duty comes out.
Well,
But
no.
that, I think.
I think it depends. I think like what Nick is saying, right? You have to be adaptable. Otherwise, you won't get far in like competitive gaming. Because I like Seagull. Do you know who Seagull is for Overwatch?
I've heard of them,
yes.
He's extremely popular streamer, but he started out in TF2 and he was a top player there too.
Yeah.
Then he transferred his skills from TF2 into Overwatch. So he was still like a top player. He knew how to play the game before he even got into it, basically.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense to me. A lot of what I watch when it comes to watching professional competitive gaming is like the fighting scene, and that's more like Street Fighter, Marvel versus Capcom, and those guys who are so good at those guys who are super good at Street Fighter, they usually transfer those skills to like Marvel, the next Marvel competition and stuff like that, just because it's a necessity to be able to transfer that stuff and be good to still be competitive and relevant, I guess, in the competitive scene.
I think, for me, my problem with the competitive games and calling them, esports is, I mean, sure, lack of physical exertion, but that's not all of what sports are about. I think, and this is something that, once again, I'm still new to the competitive scene and the concept of competitive gaming. So if you guys have something, please feel free to educate me.
No problem.
But, yeah, no, you won't. But something that bothers me is the transferable skills between being an athlete and everyday life. So in football, in basketball, in wrestling, and all these sports I've played, each one has given me a bunch of skills that I use in everyday life. I mean, it teaches me discipline, work ethic, teamwork, communication skills. It gives me a group of people that I can connect with. It opens all these doors, with connections professionally to like alumni and all that stuff. And it gets me in good shape, and it does all these other things. And I see a few of those things in competitive gaming, such as the adaptability that you guys were saying. That is huge in modern day life. And so to know how your skills can transfer and to not freak out when something new comes out, but to adapt to it is a huge skill. But I wonder, like, when I've been doing competitive gameplay, the only communications I really hear is, Pharah coming left, or, they got Reinhardt's shield is down, stuff like that. And I'm using Overwatch because that's what I'm into right now. Buy Overwatch, it's great. But I don't really hear the conversation of, okay, this is how we adapt. This is what needs to be changed. They're doing this. What should we do? I don't hear much of that. Caveat to that, I'm still at a very low level competitively. So, I mean, I don't know if that changes when you get higher up.
Just to kind of go off of you, because I know I can relate. I'm kind of in the middle between the gaming world and the athlete world. To a degree with communications and shape, that's the thing that bothers me the most. When I see, especially like recently, I watched the Atlantic City Gears of War 4 tournament, which is like the top tier for Gears of War 4 players. You have teams like Optic, Envy, playing each other. So you have these really elite guys. When they come out there, they're not in the best physical shape.
Yeah.
Which for me, for a sport, kind of demands that. Like people consider like bowling a sport. No, it's not. Or poker. No, it's not. I mean, I feel like for something to qualify as a sport in that regard, you have to show some type of physical exertion to the degree of where you're exerting physical force, if that makes sense. And that's where I have a kind of an issue with it. But from the other flip side is it's super tactical. And you have to work with your team. You have to be able to be a team player because most of these games are not individuals. I mean, obviously you have individual Twitch streamers that are competitive, but from that standpoint, all these guys are teams of 4, teams of 5. So you need to be able to work in a team environment. You need to be able to work under immense amount of pressure, which with football, can I use that as an example, we have to do the same thing. So there are things that do relate. I just think, like with all things and all time, as generations come through and things change, there's always going to be resistance to change. And I have slowly changed to think that there is a spot for esports because esports, as it's defined now, is only through video games. But with VR happening and augmented reality, you could have these electronic sports that involve these digital worlds, and they could actually over time become an actual sport. Like just for a sci-fi example, you could have somebody be put into an arena, a digital arena, playing a video game.
Be gladiators.
Like Gladiator or something like that. Mm-hmm. That's considered a sport at that time. So I think for the state we're at now, you can only see what's in front of you. And to me, as an athlete, seeing things being compared, I don't think you should compare the two. I think they're separate entities, and I think that's the best way to kind of go from it forward. But esports to me is awesome. I think it's a great way for people that can't do actual sports too to be competitive and still be on a team and still have those sport-like qualities. And it's a good way to kind of involve more community members as well.
I didn't think about it that way. How that E in the esports doesn't
it changes it.
Yeah,
it's different.
It changes it, but it also opens the door for so many other things, not just video games.
Yeah.
So I didn't think about it that way, and I guess that's my bad for not seeing it.
No worries.
That's
I mean,
fine.
like I said earlier, I was kind of hostile towards it too, and I mean, it took me a while to kind of get over them trying to call them athletes after I've done something that for so long as football, and you just. It's hard to kind of compare the two, but the more and more I look into it, the more possibilities open up, and eventually, if possible, I mean, imagine watching a football game digitally, like a digital space, but you could create the arena, and it's always changing, and you can create the scenery. So that could technically be, that's all electronic, right? That could be technically electronic sports. So those are just examples. So I think it's a great way to start. It's a good way to pave the way in this digital era.
Sure.
All right, I got a question. So recently, or I think in like recent years, professional gamers have been getting sports visas. What do you think of that?
Well, I mean, some have to because you have these guys that are foreigners that come in and they need a travel visa to come in, and that's a way for them to kind of circumnavigate that. But it does, in a way, legitimately that document tells them that they're an athlete now. And I don't know. I don't know if I'm a fan of that or not, because I just don't consider somebody like, sort of LeBron James. He's an athlete. He's a professional athlete. I don't consider somebody that sits behind a computer and plays, Counter-Strike on the same level. But I feel like it's necessary now to get people from around the world to come to our tournaments and to come to our games and actually be a world leader in esports. So it's always a constant struggle with this topic. It's back and forth.
Well, my question is, what's the difference between a sports visa and a professional visa?
I don't think there's a professional visa. I think it's when it comes to a sports visa, it's basically for international players to come in and stay, or like for soccer teams, like the shirt I'm wearing now, they'll bring in players from around the world and they'll give them sports visas so that way they can live there and play for that team. and then the sports fees is up whenever they get traded or they leave. It's basically like a green card, essentially, but for players and athletes, for a team to bring players in. What were you gonna say, Billy?
Well, I was gonna back up and ask. So, when it comes to what do you consider a sport, you said that you have to sweat, and things like bowling and stuff like that aren't sports to you, in your opinion. And I was gonna say, or ask rather, what do you think about like racing as competitiveness?
Racing's also different too, but I think it's motorsports is what they call it, which obviously I know because I have a family friend of mine that actually does professionally drives trucks, and the amount of work they have to put into it to handle that force from driving that fast is ridiculous. Looking at the stats, I know the training they have to go through that is ridiculous. There's some stat that says that a typical human being at that force and that speed could only handle 7 laps if they didn't do the training and they didn't have the proper equipment. So because I can't really step in this territory too much because I'm not educated enough to make a valid claim.
Right.
But I really think that with each sport as it comes into its own, whether it's motorsports, esports, professional sports, whatever it is, or in any hobby, you want to be the greatest at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You always, anything that you're involved in that can be competitive, you want to be the best. And for a competitive environment to grow from that, I think really shows the passion for each individual in that area. And it's all going to be controversial in each one. But I think having a competitive stage where you can be professional in something is a great way to grow your community and a great way to grow your game or your sport and get more word out there. And it's a great way for people to who not necessarily can be involved. So say I can't do motorsports or I couldn't do football. I could be in gaming esports. Or if I'm in gaming esports, I could become even better and grow over different games. So it's just, I think from a growth standpoint, this is what games and everything else are kind of striving towards, is to create, professionals in the world space.
Sure.
Wow, man, that was a lot.
Yeah. Also, something that's different. I think something you guys might not know is that a lot of esports teams are owned by professional basketball players.
Really?
Yeah.
Isn't Shaq on a team?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, well, I know that basketball. I've seen a lot of athletes that have been retired actually buying these teams and sponsoring them because they see it too. And that's one thing also that kind of opened my mind up is that if these athletes are buying into it, why shouldn't I? Because they're seeing something that maybe I'm not seeing, and it kind of makes you think, well, maybe this is something that is the next big. Maybe this is something that can be legitimate and can be put on ESPN or not even ESPN. I think honestly, as cool as that was, I think having it on Twitch and the gamer outlets, I think Twitch is the equivalent to an ESPN.
I mean, it
type of
is
coverage.
basically. It covers all the tournaments, right?
Yeah, it does, and you have probably more viewers on Twitch for one of these streams than you do watching, channel programming.
Yeah.
So I mean, you have,
it's free,
right? You have the traditional outlets that people compare it to, but we're as a culture and as technology increases, we're always changing what we're watching, and I feel like we're on that level now with viewership. Like I've watched tournaments that have had more people watch a tournament than come to my football game, and that's got to say something, right? Obviously, if you have 150,000 people watching your online tournament, you're legitimate. People are coming to legitimately watch you play, and I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah.
And watching these arenas be sold out and seeing the venues and the sponsorships and the way it's created, it's come such a long way from the days of MLG or the days of competitive arcade. The history is so rich, and to see it where it's come from, game battles and all that stuff, to now where we're becoming bigger than some sports at some points.
Yeah. To bounce off that, the League of Legends finals were watched by 32 million people.
Holy crap.
32 million.
Yeah, 32 million. I think 8.5 million were live.
Well, I'm gonna look up Super Bowl views because that might be almost in the same league as that. Obviously, not as much, but 32 million people for a video game to watch a tournament or a championship should kind of tell you where we're at in today's age. Obviously, not every game will get that following. Like, I like to play Killer Instinct a lot, and it's obviously the following for that is very niche, but overall arcing, each game has people that come into it. But I know fighting games and MOBAs are the two big ones, and then shooters, right?
Yes.
Are the big three for competitive gaming.
I think we need to talk about that. Like,
Yeah.
what games are actually viable competitively?
Okay.
Because that's a weird-ish discussion in gaming itself.
I got you. So, what games do you think now are the big competitive ones that are up? And I know Overwatch, we've discussed that as a big one.
Yeah.
And that's fairly new. So
Yeah. What, do you guys play any Counter-Strike at all or anything?
a little bit. I used to, but
Okay.
terrible at it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
awful. But like there's like competitive speed running, right?
Really? I didn't know about that.
There's speed
Oh, yeah.
running. Is that an esport? Like
I don't know. I don't know if.
That's I don't know.
I think
yeah,
that's just being good.
that's a gray
controversial.
area.
Yeah, because
to me, that's a hobby.
that's a hobby. That's just
a
being
hobby
really
to
damn
me.
good at your hobby. Like, I mean, there's no way. I mean,
Well, if you look at competitive speed running, what about competitive cup stacking?
that's just being good at your hobby. There's just not everything can be. You know when you let something happen, the domino effect comes. Where
Yeah.
everything can be a sport. You gotta draw a line at some points, and you gotta have quality control because then eventually everything gets tarnished. You know, you gotta have
Yeah.
things be at a certain competitive standpoint. I don't believe competitive speedrunning. Being good at speedrunning is different from competitive speedrunning. Now you could do like your own little tournament. Like if we all wanted to play Legend of Zelda and we see how fast we all can complete it, and whoever wins, you know, good for you, get a pound on the back. But that's just, I think, being personally, like it's human nature to be competitive. I don't think that classifies as being an actual sport. Is there anything else that you guys have seen that I know you two are way more in the competitive space than we are? So is there anything you've seen that's like up and coming or kind of faded away in the gaming scene from competitive or?
I mean, honestly, I'm not really that 100% well versed in the competitive scene,
Okay.
but I don't know. I feel like Halo was like really, really the biggest like shooter
Yeah.
in the MLG days, and I don't think it's not at that level anymore, especially with the newer releases. It's definitely Overwatch, and I don't know too much about Overwatch. So, why do you guys think that has like gotten to where it's at now?
Well,
Ooh.
I know why, and it's the developers. There's certain games that developers make for competitive use, like Overwatch or Street Fighter V that was released early for like Evo.
Right.
It's games like those that they're made to be played competitively, and then
Right.
there's games that just happen, like Dota. Dota was a mod for I think World of Warcraft, and it evolved into Dota 2, which is like one of the hardest to play esports games of all time. And then Melee 2 wasn't intended to be played competitively, but a scene sprang up and they forced their way into the competitive scene. Basically, it's different. There's two ways developers can approach the game. Like Nintendo doesn't like competitive games because they want their audience to be everybody.
Yeah, I feel it. And there are another thing too is for games that are coming out competitively are there was an H1Z1. It was those military shooters where it's like a I'm trying to think what it is. It's like Battleground. That's the new one that just came out. It's where you guys are. It's like 100 people and you have to be the last man surviving or that's the last man standing. Have you guys seen those at all?
Yeah.
You know what I'm
It's
talking about?
Battlegrounds, right?
Yeah, Battlegrounds is the new one. It started with H1Z1, or it started with DayZ as a mod.
Yeah.
Then H1Z1 did it, and now Battlegrounds is perfecting it. Just kind of looking at the Twitch top 5 right now is League of Legends, Counter-Strike, Hearthstone, Battlegrounds, Dota 2, and then obviously Overwatch and Street Fighter are up there with the random assortment of games that are the flavor of the month. But League of Legends obviously is huge. It's got 231,000 viewers right now. And that's consistent. League of Legends is always the top. Counter-Strike is always number 1 and number 2 as well with 200,000 people. And that's just people watching people play video games. That should tell you the magnitude of where we're at now with the legitimacy of esports is the viewership. And when you have viewers, sponsors are going to come because people are there. They can make money. And when the sponsors come, well, then people that were kind of naysayers too, well, you have the viewership, you have the venues, you have the sponsors. What else are they missing now? I think that's another topic now that we have everything to legitimately say we are a sport.
It's just a little bit of pushback from traditional sports,
Yeah,
right?
I agree. And then with everything, with even traditional media is kind of pushing back on the new media today is because they've already established everything. They don't want change. People are always resistant to change, and I think it's just going to take time to grow and let people actually kind of see. And I don't think it'll ever end. I think competitive gaming will slowly start to take over smaller tier sports. And I think the next 10 years from now, if this growth continues, we could have something pretty incredible on our hands. And it's also another thing too with online gaming. It's more accessible now. I know Xbox came out with Xbox Arcade or not Arcade, Arena, so you could sign up for online tournaments, totally skipping out game battles. So no, you don't need a computer anymore. All you need to do is just sign up and play. And with online gaming become as streamlined as it is now, more people have access to playing online than they did in the past. And I think the more people you have access to, the more the bigger it's going to get. And I think we're kind of getting closer to the end of our time here. We always kind of wrap it up talking. So you guys want to go back to the cheap games section and kind of tie it into competitive games? So I guess starting off, Team Fortress 2 is free, so you don't have to pay anything for that.
Yeah.
That game is an absolute blast.
Oh, it's an absolute classic too.
It is too,
Yep.
and it's a huge community still also.
The best, yeah.
And then if you really want to pay money into it, you can buy cosmetics. But I mean,
Hats.
the hats are ridiculous there. I mean, they have a whole Steam page for apps or Steam store for this game. But every class is free. Every map is free. They have holiday events. Like I know they had the Christmas event. It's a huge community, and I don't see Valve ever releasing a game ever again. So Team Fortress 3 is probably not going to happen for a long time. So I think it's still a good time investment, even though the game's been out for over a decade now, I think. And I think it's just continued to be supported.
On that note, I think Dota 2 is free as well, right?
Yeah.
I don't know too much about it, but that's free to play as well on Steam, I believe.
Yeah. It's also pretty big. I mean,
It's always one of the top streamed games on Twitch each day. So currently it has like
45K.
45K viewers just as this moment.
That's crazy. There's RuneScape. right down at 4,000.
RuneScape.
RuneScape's
RuneScape's free to play too.
Oh, RuneScape's a good one too. Yeah. Sorry, Alan. RuneScape's also free. Take on RuneScape, or old school RuneScape, not the new crap. OSRS. I played that for a summer. I kind of went on a nostalgia trip. No XP waste is what they call it now. But no, that's also free. Everything so far has been free.
Yeah, I got Hearthstone, which is also free.
Yeah.
Hearthstone's free. It's fun to play. Like I don't play competitively because that's too hard. You actually have to invest like money into packs to make sure you get what you want.
Right.
But I just play for fun, just goof around there, make some decks to annoy people, basically.
Yeah. Anti-meta decks.
Yeah.
Just troll them a little bit.
Oh. So you're the guy I hate. So I'm going to be the one guy who doesn't say a free game, but I'm going to go back to one I said last week of Overwatch.
Okay.
It has a really strong competitive scene, but it also has a really nice casual scene. It's for consoles and PCs. You can play them both. Every character is free. Every new character is free. Every new map is free. The new modes are free. The only thing that you have to pay for is, and you don't even have to, you can if you want to, are the loot boxes. And I know we talked a little bit about those last week, but I think in terms of a competitive game where you get your bang for your buck, it's so new, and it picks up where as Team Fortress 2's spiritual successor.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's going to, if there's any correlation there, it's going to have a really strong following for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I'm still going back to it, and I tend to pick up and drop games faster than almost anyone I know.
All of the characters are also, they have their own unique personalities in the world, so vibrant, like it's so vibrant, and I think that's credit to Blizzard because they can craft really creative games and stories. So even though Overwatch is multiplayer only, I still want to find out the lore of a multiplayer only game, so that should kind of tell you like the quality that's also in that game as well.
Yep, so long story short, that one's mine, Overwatch.
Well, the game I was talking about earlier was King of the Hill. Is the new one, and that's a really big one that's popping up. And Battlegrounds is the new King of the Hill game that doesn't have to do with zombies or any of the world stuff. It's legitimately just King of the Hill. And I know a lot of the YouTubers that I've watched or Twitch streamers have slowly kind of started to adopt this game, and it's a lot of fun. So basically, if you guys haven't played this before, it's 100 players, and you try to be the last man standing. And you come in with no weapons, no nothing. You have to search for crates. Kind of like the Minecraft thing earlier with the Battlegrounds.
Yeah.
And you got to find things. And then basically survive, and then if you kill people, you take their stuff as well. So I think that's the new next flavor of the year. Maybe it could stay around a lot longer. I don't know, but I think that's the next big game. And I know I talked about Humble Bundle too last week, but this one's huge, especially for console players. It's the THQ Humble Bundle, and for $1 donation, you get Book of Unwritten Tales 2 for PS4, Red Faction for PS4. Super Dungeon Bros, Deponia, and Arcania, the complete tale, which is 3 of the Arcania games for $1. I think that's a great price for pretty solid games, though Deponia is pretty good. Arcania is a AA RPG, but it's a good time sink. And Red Faction, if you haven't played any of those games, they're pretty good.
So let's wrap this up so I can go get that.
Yeah, seriously. And then the other 2 tiers are Destroy All Humans 1 and 2, Legend of K, and Battle Worlds Chronos. And if you pay $15 for all of it, you get both Darksiders 1 and 2 for PS3, the remastered versions, and the MX versus ATV, which I'm not personally a big fan of, but I mean it's basically 15 games for $15. It's at $1 a game.
That's pretty good.
And the Darksiders series is absolutely incredible.
Phenomenal.
It's basically THQ's version before they went under of The Legend of Zelda. I think Darksiders 2 is the ending is a cliffhanger, but a beautiful game, beautiful story.
Yeah, I'd almost say it's like Legend of Zelda meets God of War.
I agree. It's critically underrated, which is kind of a shame. But the more and more people that play it, the more access. Like I know Xbox is giving both games away for free, and with this, I'm hoping that more players kind of play it. And I feel like if they get enough audience pushing for it, then hopefully Darksiders 3 can finally come out, and I can complete the story and know what the hell happened, so that way I don't really have to imagine what happened in the games. But no, I think this competitive discussion was pretty awesome, because I know Eric's pretty new to it, I'm still new to it. So it's always fun to talk about topics like this that are always changing. In a year's time, if you were to come back to this, it'd be different, you know? And it's been a blast, and I can't wait to see where we go with this. I guess the final note, is there any game right now that you guys are playing that you want to be competitive in? Or you consider yourself being in that top tier bracket someday?
Nope.
Battlefront.
And, I'd love to, but I'm kind of trash. So
I want to be competitive in Overwatch, but I am not. I'm not good enough.
So if you could though, like, if you could pick one game that you could be really competitive at, or if you could take a lot of time off and actually compete in that, what game would it be?
Overwatch.
100% melee.
Melee?
Call of Duty 4 or Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 or World at War in Search and Destroy only.
Search SND, man. Game Battles SND. Or the days when everybody had the mics and they would trash talk. I miss those so much.
That's what it's about.
360 Modern Warfare 2, when everybody, especially Modern Warfare 2, when they had the mics, when you had to go into game chat, there was so much shit talking. The mom jokes were popular on that time, so you had a ton of that. And then I know playing COD games now, you hear all these little kids talking, making you think, was I really that bad? Because like the ages has flipped. Because now we're in college, we're playing these COD games, and then back then these kids were in college playing these COD games, and we were like in high school. I think Modern Warfare 2 came out in middle school, right?
Yeah.
You had been your freshman year.
Well, I think it was high school.
Yeah, high school.
It's maybe like our sophomore or junior year.
Yeah,
or something
man, that was a long time ago. Holy crap, we're getting old, man. But
Don't remind me.
No, don't remind. We still got some more time. So I want to thank you guys for listening to our episode 2 of our podcast. Also, we have our Facebook page as well. If you can check us out there, you can reach with us. We'd love to interact with the community, get some ideas and feedback. And also, if you're on campus around here too, we'd love to have you on the show, potentially do a guest speaker. I know we've been kind of thinking about that as well. As always, I'm Nick.
I'm Billy.
I'm Alan.
And I'm Eric.
And thank you for joining the Casually Hardcore podcast. Thanks, guys.
See you later.
See ya.
Bye-bye.